Hello everyone, Super Turtle 12 here, and today we're going to be discussing the new pictures they released for the Sideshow Collectibles Taskmaster. So let's pull up a picture here. Now Taskmaster, guys, is one of my favorite like low-key villains because I think he's a very niche villain. Not a lot of people know who he is. However, he's this guy that can see someone do something like a physical ability and he can replicate it. At sometimes at the cost of his own health, he can still do it. So I think he was always this really cool character that I like to root for because he's a human at the end of the day. But anyway, looking at this first picture here of Taskmaster, we can kind of see that his color, I think, is what draws our eyes to him. Ignoring the green tinge around him, the color palette is very unique for this character. And I think if you were to have this in your collection, it would be somewhat striking because these are not modern color palettes. And looking at this design, guys, and if you're a fan of Taskmaster, you're going to notice that this is essentially the classic Taskmaster, right? And I'll put a picture up here so you can kind of see both of them. But you're getting classic Taskmaster, which is kind of not strange, but this is something I want to say new because I usually see Sideshow doing modern portrayals of characters. Yeah, but I mean, looking more in detail at this image here, we can also see that he does not have a sculpted cape, that it is a mixed media cape to either your wonder or your frustration. And we also get a cool shot of his pose, which is also reminiscent of the classic Taskmaster pose. So I don't know yet. Looking at this picture, I'm still debating on whether I would purchase this, right? So let's get a closer look here. Let's look at the next picture here, which is a shot of his body. And this is where we start to see the closer details, like the leatherwork. I think the leatherwork looks great. I think it pops from the blue and the white. He's got a few pouches there. I think the sculpting on the leather is marvelous, right? On his right leg, he has like a holstered pistol. That's cool. And on his left leg, he's got a studded, I don't know, leg brace. I don't know what you want to call this. I know when you get married, some women wear that. But I don't think that's what that is. But it's just curious. But it is part of his original design. He does have that in his classical attire. But you do see that strap on the shield looks good, very reminiscent of Captain America. The two gold kind of bolts that hold his cape together. That's awesome. And what might make or break some people, because again, it's like Superman, but Superman, you've seen him so much, you're used to it. But this is a character that I don't think many people don't know or really know of. But he does have these white short spandex, which to me works fine because I like Taskmaster. I'm like, all right, he's cool. But I know some people might see that and it's striking to them and they'll be like, oh, I'm not sure about that. Okay, so very nice here. Let's go to the next picture here where we see, I think, what makes me want to buy this figure, which is that head sculpt. And I think Sideshow is just great at doing, Court of the Dead, very like grotesque and macabre, things. I don't know if they have like a human skeleton somewhere in their office and they use that as reference. But looking at this skull, guys, the detail in the shapes, the contours, the cheekbones, kind of how they designed a frown, like a frown or like a furrow in the brow of the skull. I think that's great. The teeth have like a shine to them, which is really cool. It really reminds me of, like a Red Skull or Skeletor vibe, which is excellent. But I think what draws you into this are the human eyes. You can kind of look closer and you see that it's actually like war paint and there's a person under there. And another plus is I like the widowed kind of hood that he has. I think it's very cool and I think it adds to his, back to his classical design. But it adds a good shape, I think, to his head, especially at this angle. I actually want to see what he looks like with that hood pulled back. So I hope eventually we get some photos because I hope that skull is actually like a skull helmet and not a skull mask. It would be weird just to see, this really kind of dark visage of death, and then in the back it's just a human, So I think at least having the full helmeted skull would be really awesome to have. So points for that sculpt. The mixed media cape. Where do we start? Okay, some people are either gonna love this or hate this. I tend to see that people like sculpted capes, mostly because an artist had to sit down and they had to meticulously, sculpt that cape from hand or even digitally, right? But some human effort was put into that, and that adds to the value of the piece, because if it breaks, it loses value. Versus sculpted, it's worth more because it's more artistic design into the statue. I have a feeling they went with maybe the mixed media to kind of also save on costs, only because I feel like Taskmaster is a very niche villain, although a villain I grew up liking a lot and I would root for him, use them in the game called Heraclix. But I think with the size they were going for, having a completely sculpted cape probably would have raised his figure another $50, And if he's already this kind of niche character, I don't know how many people will buy him, which makes me think this might be a low edition size. But we'll talk more of that in the last picture here. But here we get to see a couple more things that we didn't. We see that he has this cool spot for his quiver, which is awesome because I think most of the time you see these characters in a comic book and they're just pulling stuff out like, oh, I got my arrows back here, unlimited arrows. I got my sword back. Here we have some practical portrayal of that here, so I think that's good. The color is all right. It's a quiver. I mean, the shield, other than the logo painted on, it's like a cap shield. He does have his bow in that hand, which is cool. I like his gloves. He's got these like old school villain gloves, which are great. And then you see his boots, right? I don't think I've ever seen a white boot other than on a stormtrooper. So looking at these, it's different. To me, it looks kind of like like an Adidas shoe. But for the character, it works. That's part of his design, so we'll go with it. But on this last picture here, this is where a lot of my conflicts lie, because I'm going to look at this picture here on the right, and ignoring the tactical mask, right, the exclusive, look at the base. To me, every Sideshow piece tells a story, right, or at least attempts to tell a story. So when I bought, like, for example, the Wolverine, the X-23, their bases tell a story of where they are, what's going on at the time, right? And looking at this base, I don't even know if it's a Wakandian base, if it's like a Ultron headquarter base, or he's on a helicarrier. I don't know what's going on there. It would have been cool if maybe they made it like a Wakandian base, and maybe in the movie we'll find out that he worked with Claw to kind of steal metal and stuff from them, and that would have been interesting. But it's just a elevated step, guys. That's all this is. Kind of like what First Four Figures does with their statues, where usually for $50 more or $40 more, you get a dynamic base for the exclusive. Sometimes it lights up or whatever. Here it doesn't. Like, compare this to the Wonder Woman, and then you can start to kind of tell maybe they were trying to pulling back, because maybe they were thinking not a lot of people are going to buy this, especially with that movie, the Black Widow movie delayed, so people are even less familiar with this character. But anyway, the base doesn't amaze me, but here we get a better idea of what that shield looks like. The bow, it's just a silver bow, and kind of moving to the left here, we see the exclusive, which is a alternate portrait, the tactical mask. And in my opinion, that's really what I think the MCU Taskmaster should have looked like. He should have been a foreboding, presence. Instead, I feel like he's going to be this character that's Taskmaster only in name, and he's never going to say a word. And, I haven't seen the film at this point, but I just feel they're going to just do what they sometimes do with these villains, where they make them so one-dimensional. They're more like a Power Ranger, you know, where it's just the helmet and a guy underneath, you know, that can do stunts and stuff. So I don't know. But see, I'm not trying to say it's bad. I think the sculpt work is great. I don't know if if it has a light up feature. It doesn't say here that it does. Maybe it will, or maybe it's just painted on. We're not sure. But it's fine. I don't think it's a bad exclusive at all. I think it's just, you know, if you're willing to shell out the 20 bucks extra for it, more power to you. You know, especially with this statue, I feel likely going to have a low edition size just because of both who the character is and his design, because they're going with a classic design of already a not well known character. Like I said, I've seldom get into conversations where people are like, Taskmaster, that guy's just you know. So I'm not sure how well he will sell, but I'm pretty sure he will be a low edition size at the end of the day. So will I buy him? If he is $500 or less, I will buy him. If he's $550 or $560, right, or $600, I will not buy him. That is absurd to pay that much for, I think, for this figure here, especially when you have a statue like Kier, right, Valkyrie of the Dead, that has all this intricacy to the character, you know, like from the shoulder guard to the helmet. And that helmet's magnetic, so you can take it off, and it's almost having like two portraits on there. So I get that is more, that's like an unlicensed figure because it belongs to them, belongs to Sideshow. Maybe that's why they can work with that price point here. But from what you're getting, other than the color scheme and that head sculpt and maybe the cape, I think he's just a very standard statue. Maybe something they would have come up with like in the 2014 or 15 kind of era of Sideshow. So I'm probably going to buy him, but I will wait if I can until I get, you know, like a bunch of rewards from the holidays that can shave off the tax and some of the shipping, and then I'll get him because, you know, other than that, I'll probably wait until he goes free shipping. And this might be a case where the regular edition sells out before the exclusive, and that's been happening with some of these statues here. But yeah, folks, so that's my take on the premium format Taskmaster. Very, very, I don't know, interesting piece here because it dips into the classic version of a character versus making it like a modern take on it. So let me know what you think about, you know, Sideshow's decision to make it full classic Taskmaster, and what do you think of the base? What do you think of the mixed media cape? What do you think of his pose, right? His little en garde pose. Let me know what you think below, guys. Hopefully I can do more of these preview videos. You know, I really like doing them. I think they're exciting. So have a great day, guys. And remember, as always, stay super.